Well, hello, and welcome to installment number 6 of the OD Diaries. In installment 5, I started to tell my story of growing up with an odor disorder because I thought that it would help you guys to better understand a lot about what odor disorders are and a lot about humans and how they interact with each other in general. And I will get back to my story, but on this, the last day of November 2010, I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving and what I'm thankful for. I'm very thankful for all of the friends in my life, whether they have odor disorders or not. I have a lot of good friends that have helped me to get through a lot of rough times. And I've talked to two of those friends that do have odor disorders today. Their names are Laura and Lee. Now, they both asked me some very good questions, and so I thought that in this installment and possibly the next one, I'll answer those questions for everybody. First, we'll get to Laura's question. Laura asked me, she's starting a new job, and she asked me, should she tell her new boss that she has an odor disorder, and if she should, how should she do it? And what I told her is that yes, she probably should tell her new boss that she has an odor disorder, because it's not good to hide that sort of thing, especially since it's really not something you can hide. And I said that generally people appreciate honesty and openness, and if her boss doesn't appreciate that, then maybe she shouldn't be working in that job anyway. Before I found out odor disorders existed, back when I didn't really know what was wrong with me, I had a lot of jobs where I didn't tell people up front that I had an odor problem. It wasn't something that was easy to discuss, especially since I didn't know what was wrong with me. And in the end, they all confronted me about it, and I felt like a caged animal because I was caught in a trap and I couldn't get out. And it's just a much better thing to tell people about an odor disorder on your own terms, in your own time, and be upfront and honest and relaxed. That's what I told Laura. But I also told Laura that a lot of telling people about odor disorders depends on your own state of mind as the person with the odor disorder and on the type of confrontation. Now, as far as the state of minds, I call them the 5 Ds, as in dog. You can basically be in a state of denial. You can deny that you have an odor disorder, or you can be defiant about it. When people tell you you smell bad, you can be like, I don't care what you say, and you can basically just be so sick of listening to it that you'll do the opposite of what anybody tells you just out of spite. You can be in a state of desensitization, which is after a while, no matter what someone tells you, you walk around in a sort of emotional bubble and don't even hear it. You just block out the universe. You can be in a state of total defeat, which is where you are just so done with the world that you are contemplating suicide, or you are at least hiding out in your own little space, like your house or your apartment or whatever, and you just don't even want to deal with anyone. And then there's stage 5, which I call defense. Now, there's a big difference between defense and defensive. If you're defensive about something, then that's when someone confronts you and you curl up in a ball and kind of feel attacked and want to run and hide and escape. Whereas if you're in a defense mode, then you're sitting down with someone and you're saying, this is what's wrong with me, and this is what I know about it, and this is what I'm trying to do to fix the problem or to control it better. And you're basically sitting there explaining to the person what your situation is, almost like preparing a defense for a court case. You're very calm, you know your stuff. Maybe you want to have printouts that talk about the different odor disorders handy that you can give to someone that they can read later on. But the point is, really, if you're going to be in any sort of confrontation about an odor disorder, you want to be in a defense mode. You want to know your stuff as much as possible, and you want to be prepared to have the discussion. Now, it also depends a lot on the type of confrontation. For instance, I call the first type avoidance confrontation. That's where somebody confronts you out of the blue that you have the ability to avoid after that point. So, for example, if a kid at school confronts you, then you're going to have this discussion with this kid, but after that you can try to take different routes through the halls or get into different classes or basically just not have to deal with this person again. So no matter how the confrontation goes, it really doesn't matter because it's just a one-time thing. Another type of confrontation is close confrontation. Close confrontation is what I call confrontations where someone comes up to you and tells you that you smell bad, who you have to deal with on a daily basis. So, for example, when my mother confronted me as a kid, that was a close confrontation. I couldn't avoid her. I lived in the same house with her. I had to deal with her every day. And then there are confrontations with large groups in like public settings, like for instance on a public bus or on an airplane or something of that nature. That's another type of confrontation. Now, these are all three types of confrontations where people confront the person with the odor disorder. Where the person with the odor disorder is not expecting it, they're totally just oblivious to it until someone sits them down and starts in at them. And then they start to feel really, really attacked. Now, there are two other types of confrontation. One is an aggravated confrontation. And I call it an aggravated confrontation because the person with the odor disorder initiates it out of aggravation. For example, I had a very, very, very bad day a few years back when I was living in Michigan. And my ex-boyfriend had some friends named Matt and Liz. Well, I went to Matt and Liz's house at the end of the day because we planned to go visit them. And I never intended to tell them that I had an odor disorder that day. But I was so frustrated and upset over what had gone on prior to that I just started randomly ranting about odor disorders in the middle of Matt and Liz's living room. I just completely lost it because I had had such a bad day. And so basically, I was aggravated to the point that I had to vent. And then the fifth type of confrontation, of course, is willing confrontation. And a willing confrontation is where you actually sit someone down and tell them you have an odor disorder. And you plan it ahead of time and you want to tell this person. It's sort of like when I spoke at the college about a week ago about odor disorders. That was my idea. I planned to go, so I was prepared. I somewhat knew what I was going to say and what I was going to be in for. You know, it's much, much better to be coming at it from a defense standpoint into a willing confrontation than, say, to wait until someone confronts you when you're completely not expecting it and you get all defensive and you're all like, oh no, you're confronting me. Because then you panic and everything you've learned and everything you know goes out the window. And you get so nervous and upset that nobody's going to believe you. And so what I told my friend Laura is that she really should know where she stands with her boss. And she really should tell her up front as soon as possible. Because it's much better to come from her when she's prepared to say it. And so with that, I'm going to end this installment, and in a couple minutes I'll be posting another installment with the answer to my friend Lee's question from today. Thanks.